Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something deeply fascinating. It's actually kind of a haunting philosophical concept called the blind zone. You know, we go through our daily routines just assuming we see the world clearly, right? But what if our invisible blind spots, the outcomes and the realities we totally can't see, are actually the things defining our lives? So how different are we from the blind? Think about that for just a second. We rely heavily, absolutely heavily, on our vision to navigate the physical world. But when it comes to navigating the trajectory of our actual lives, are our eyes really open at all? Okay, let's dive into this. If we watch someone who is physically blind, we see them constantly feeling their way forward. They can't just stride confidently down a winding road. They can't see the potholes or the stumbling stones up ahead. And naturally, we feel a real sense of empathy for that physical struggle. But let's turn the lens on ourselves for a minute. We stride confidently through life. We walk with absolute certainty. Yet we are so often entirely blind to the actual outcomes of our most significant life choices. We have this false confidence, literally walking straight into proverbial potholes that we just couldn't foresee. Let's look at how this plays out in everyday life. We eagerly unpack all our treasures, investing everything we've got into a marriage, only to face a really painful divorce years later. Why couldn't we foresee that? Or we sincerely invest our time in friendships, only to be betrayed or robbed of our savings, or sometimes even worse. Were we completely blind to the truth from the very start? We pour our hearts and souls into raising our kids, hoping for support in our old age, but sometimes tragedy strikes, or we find ourselves totally abandoned. Given these outcomes, how accurate was our foresight when we actually started making those big investments? And it doesn't just stop at relationships either. It bleeds right into our life's work. We study a major in school, literally forgetting food and sleep, only to find ourselves completely unable to pursue that field after graduation. If we knew that from the start, why did we waste all that money and energy? We work from dawn to dusk, we live frugally, rack our brains, and hustle our entire lives. And then, at the end of the whole shebang, when death approaches, we look back and realize we practically gained nothing. So what was the purpose of our endeavors? What were we blindly busying ourselves for all those years? Now, you might be thinking this is purely some philosophical metaphor, but actually it's a hard scientific reality. 400 to 700 nanometers. To put that into perspective, that incredibly narrow band is the absolute limit of the visible light spectrum for human beings. Biologically speaking, we are physically blind to almost everything else in the universe. And this brilliantly illustrates our vulnerability, because outside of that tiny sliver of visible light, look at what we turn a blind eye to every single day. Epidemic germs flying right through the air around us, radioactive elements silently invading our nerve cells, viral bacteria filling the rivers we rely on. The welfare of the public is constantly threatened by things we absolutely cannot see. What's going to happen tomorrow is just as invisible to our eyes as the germs on our own hands. How far and how deep can our eyes really see? What's truly fascinating is how this concept scales up to society as a whole. We see the brilliant success of a military general, right? But we are completely blind to the hidden cost, the countless lives lost to achieve it. We see one family become incredibly wealthy while turning a blind eye to the reality that 10,000 other families will be relatively poor as a direct result. We celebrate brilliant predecessors, totally blind to the bleakness left behind for their descendants. We see the gain, for sure, but our blind zone completely hides the catastrophic costs from our view. It's this tragic irony of our modern hustle culture. We run ourselves ragged down what looks like a perfectly straight road. But what's the point of what we are so passionately exhausting ourselves over? Imagine this, working overtime, completely exhausting yourself to build your dream house, only to realize you built it right in an area where an earthquake is imminent. In that scenario, the more effort you put in, the greater your ultimate loss. The more you hurry, well, the more you waste. Consider the historical example of the Titanic. Imagine sweating profusely, anxiously queuing up, fighting off the crowds, just to secure tickets for that famous maiden voyage. Think about the pure joy of finally getting that ticket in your hand. But with the benefit of hindsight, we really have to ask, was the day you successfully secured that ticket actually the day the tragedy began for you? It's crazy. But our blindness completely inverts the meaning of our victories. Let's look at a story from a dirt road in Binka, Zimbabwe. The author was driving a Toyota pickup truck along the path when a rabbit suddenly jumped out, attempting to hurry across. Despite slamming hard on the brakes, the rabbit was crushed under the wheel. It forces this really sobering reflection. Oh, rabbit, why do you hurry across the road? If you slowed down for just a few seconds, you could pass safely. Which leads us to a pretty difficult realization. Does speed really make you safer? We take so much pride in our relentless, high-spirited pace, don't we? We rush through our careers, our relationships, our daily tasks. But is this high-speed road actually the best way of life? Or are we just rushing blindly into the path of an oncoming threat? There's another profound observation that perfectly captures this. Imagine sitting in the study room of Villa number 46 at night with the window open. Bees desperately fly in, seeking the bright light of the lamp. But by the very next morning, all of those bees are found dead. It raises the question, oh bees, why do you seek out the light instead of staying in the safety and darkness of the night? Is any bright place automatically a good place? So, the crucial point is this. These parables aren't just about animals. They are fundamentally about human nature. The rushing rabbit and the light-seeking bees, that's us. How many tragedies in the world happen simply because we are in such a haste? And how many pure joys of life are completely ruined because of our blind, unthinking pursuit of what we perceive as brightness? Where exactly are we all going in such a huge hurry? Section 1. The Farmer's Hidden Gold. To wrap up this exploration, we turn to a final, powerful allegory about where true value really lies and our ultimate blindness to the treasures sitting right under our very feet. Consider the story of a farmer. Hearing exciting rumors of gold far away, he did what, honestly, a lot of us would do. He sold his property, packed up, and traveled to a distant place to pan for gold. Years passed, and eventually he returned to his hometown completely empty-handed. But upon his return, he heard news that filled him with just unbearable regret. The man who had bought his property dug up a massive amount of gold right there on the exact land the farmer had sold. He blindly abandoned his treasure to go search for it somewhere else. Ultimately, we all find ourselves stuck in this blind zone. We are all navigating blindly. Even with the most profoundly deep religious and philosophical texts available to humanity, there are honestly very few individuals throughout history who can clearly guide us out of this. We've yet to truly grasp how to escape this blind navigation and find a real path to happiness. Which leaves us with this final, lingering thought. How much farther must we tread within this blind zone? Take a moment today to really consider what you might be rushing toward, what brightness you are blindly chasing, and what hidden gold might already exist right beneath your own 2 feet. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and remember to keep your eyes open.